Younts. Welcome to the DMF, and this is part one. Welcome to the DMF, Discovering Meaning in Film and Acting. I am thrilled to welcome an award-winning casting director from Telsey Company who has casted both Wicked films as well as Mean Girls and many other films. Please welcome to the DMF, Tiffany Little Canfield. How are you doing?
I'm good. Thank you for having me, Justin.
Well, thank you. So my first question is, where did you grow up?
Grew up in Sacramento, California.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
How did that influence you as a casting director?
I would say I went to Sac High, which had at the time an arts magnet program. So we had a pretty good drama program, frankly. And I got bit by the bug and acted in a lot of plays and, took it very seriously, studied. I actually think they had a good basic foundation of American classical, training, because though I went on and trained further, I never learned anything like what we were doing was wrong or my process was mixed up. It was actually, I think, a very basic version of it, but it was a good foundation. It's actually kind of referenced in the film Lady Bird. If you saw Greta Gerwig's masterpiece, she really nails Sacramento. And when she says, I want to go to the school that my brother went to, she means Sac High, that program. Because, I think Greta actually went to shows to see her older siblings in plays, at Sac High, because we were the high school that had the drama program, and dance program and music program. So I got started there, and then I just really acted, did community theater and, Sacramento's version of Shakespeare in the Park and stuff. And then I went to a 2-year acting training program in California called PCPA, which is an actor training program that is aligned with the regional theater. So you get the opportunity, your teachers are professional actors who are working in the company, and then you often can audition and perhaps be cast in the main stage productions as well as your studio, classwork productions. And it was there that I was like, this is the right art form, but I don't think I will be happy being an actor, because I really got frustrated if the play wasn't working and it wasn't good. It didn't matter if I thought I was good. I want the play to be good. And I would just be really unhappy if the play wasn't good. And I just thought, I can't control whether the whole play is good as an actor. Yeah. So I had a wonderful teacher there say to me, why aren't you thinking about directing? Like, you think kind of big picture about the plays. Like when you talk about it, you're always talking big picture. And he told me about the North Carolina School of the Arts directing drama program. So I transferred there and got my BFA from there.
Wow.
So I think that all led to me being a casting director.
Yeah. I mean, okay. So you were really in acting. Like I saw that you were an actor. I didn't realize that you really were
well, in school. I never went out, tried to get an agent or professionally, because I was in school when I decided this is not the life for me. I want to do something where I can have more impact on the overall project.
But you spent some time. That's what I mean.
No, I'm professionally trained.
I mean, doing theater. That's different. I imagine you did Shakespeare. So I mean,
I sure did.
You said that. So some actors here, they call themselves professional, haven't even touched Shakespeare, and it's like, if you do Shakespeare, it'll teach you a lot of what you need to do for the work, because you have to work so hard on it. But so working on that, like, were you trained in did you know about like Meisner or Strasberg? Okay. So, wow. Okay.
Yeah. That was it. I mean, I think you using those basic Stanislavski technique and then using the different styles. I think we even did some viewpoints along the way and like Suzuki work and all of that stuff, like really classical training. Yeah.
That's awesome. What was there a moment that you had where you just went, okay, this just isn't for me? Or was it like a certain play that you had?
Yeah, we had a situation where I did get cast, in main stage productions, which was, such an honor as a student. But I was not happy because I didn't think I'll be honest, I didn't think the play was well cast. I thought it was bad. I thought people were miscasting it. I'm sitting over here playing a small part, and I'm not that I want a bigger part, but I'm looking and going like, why this person rather than this person? And like, they cast,
Yeah.
Miracle Worker, Mrs. Keller is the same age as Mr. Keller, but in the play, she's supposed to be his younger, like his second wife, and the same age as his son, which creates
Yeah.
some conflict in the house. But because she looks the same age as him, you just don't understand why the son is so upset. Like, I just was sitting over there going like, why do they do it this way? And when you're an actor, it's not for you to raise your hand and ask those
No,
questions.
I know.
Like,
I
you are difficult if you do that. So
You
I
just sit
think I
back
just
and go,
was
"Take it
like,
on."
just underneath, I was sitting there and I saw my peers and friends going like, we're so excited to get cast. And I'd be excited for approximately like one day. And after the table read, I'd be like, this isn't going to be good.
That reminds me, during the pandemic, I did a play of, Dorian Gray, and when I saw who they cast as some I was like, "Wait a minute. He he can't speak like that. That there Nobody who's from South America is in this point in time," and I'm just like,
Oh, I
but you
think they
can't
can be
but you
okay about
can't do
that. But yeah,
anything
no,
about it, but yeah.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Mhm.
Um, so yeah, so you went to North Carolina School of the Arts, um, and you learned directing. So how did you transition that into casting? What was it about casting?
Well, I didn't even know casting was a job, to be honest,
Mhm.
because, in the theater, especially in California, artistic directors do the casting for their theater productions. So I hadn't ever encountered a casting director um, until I was at School of the Arts. A cast director who, Alexa Fogel, actually, who's amazing,
Mm,
came down to the school, and Dan Swee from Lincoln Center. And it still didn't really sink in for me, like, oh, this is something I could do. I just knew I was moving to New York. I have, no support system there. I had no connections. My
yeah,
parents are not wealthy. They're going to
yeah,
support me or something. So I was really just focused on living in New York at first, of like, how can I, get a waiting tables job, and like, can I pay my rent here and live here?
yeah.
And then I looked for an internship, like looked on playbill.com. How do I get close to the industry that I want to be a part of? Because you
Mm,
think it's hard to be an actor, at least there are auditions you could crash. How do you become a director? Like, no one's like, here's,
yeah.
$50,000. Let's do an off Broadway show. You're not doing that. So, and, I didn't ever see any, there were no notifications about like looking for an assistant director or anything like that. It all seemed to be like through connections. So I thought, well, I got to get some connections. So
Mm,
I answered an ad, pursued a couple of internships, and got close to the public theater, which was like my dream.
yeah.
And then did answer an ad to work on Baz Luhrmann's production of Puccini's La Boheme on Broadway. And, it's a joke in our family. They were looking for someone with an opera background because they were really investigating opera singers, not
Mhm.
Broadway crossover, not mainstream, just like true opera singers. But I had seen only half an opera because in college I had to go see one and I left at intermission. Totally got caught too. But with a degree in directing, I'm like, that's a research degree. What do you need me to know about
Yeah.
about opera? And that's how I got an interview and I got the job, right? And so I got the internship, and then I got hired to keep working on it. And it was me and the casting director, just me and her. And then Baz Luhrmann hired her to become his associate director. And I now saw a path to what I wanted
Mhm.
through this job of casting. But in the meantime, I fell in love with casting
Mhm.
so hard that when my time came and I did have that relationship with the director, that I thought I could say, hey, if you're ever looking, I'm open to that. I didn't want to leave casting. I was like, no, this is the right spot for me.
One thing that I like that you just kind of really showed, and I think a lot of actors kind of just like kind of sit and wait to be discovered. You went for it. You looked on Playbill. You're like, I'm going to try this. I'm going to try that. And I feel like sometimes, as actors, we just kind of are like, oh, well, hopefully, this is coming. It's, that going out there and getting it. Because the question I had is, explain to like the people listening how casting directors are very similar to actors in some ways, and how they get jobs. There's
Oh, like
it's
interview for jobs and things like that? Yeah.
interview for
Mhm.
jobs. I mean, you talked about you wanted the public theater, but you ended up getting this.
Mhm.
Talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, I mean, I think that interviews and auditions are not that different of where
Mm,
we get a script, right? Like if we get an opportunity to interview for a casting project, often what will happen is a producer reaches out, they send the script, we read it, and we go in and meet, and we want to speak intelligently about the storytelling and tone and subtext, right? Like, and all the things that you need to discover within your sides to do a
mhm.
successful audition. You're putting in that reading. I could joke about and say reading comprehension, but reading comprehension is actually harder than people realize to be like excellent at it. You
Yeah,
mean you have to look below the surface. Not everyone is telling the truth. Just because a character says it doesn't make it face value, right? Like you need to be able
yeah.
to interpret the script, right? And so do we. And so then we go in and interview, and it's very much about, I think, an artistic meeting of the minds. I think that's why I was able to book that internship for Bohème, even though I had only seen half an opera. I think that Heidi, who was the casting director, saw in me someone similar, a working style, a curiosity. I did my research of, you know, reading about the production, which had been announced because they were already starting to cast it, so it had been announced. And I read about the production in Australia and that this was essentially kind of like a re envisioning of that production. So I read all the reviews of that one. And I
Mhm.
saw that the main thing that everyone talked about is they had young singers where, the opera world doesn't really, it doesn't matter what age you actually are. It's like how you sing is the most
Yeah.
important thing. But in this version, we would be casting character, act singers that were more like if you were doing a film version, like
Yeah.
looked like the
Similar to
parts.
what he
Correct.
did with, like, Romeo and Juliet, and,
Yes, it
he likes to
absolutely.
twist things on its head,
Yeah.
look at
So,
Elvis,
right, exactly. So, but it is the opera in Italian, like
Yeah.
it's the Bohème, So I looked into, as I prepared for my interview to work for free, by the way, for 6 weeks. Um, I I looked at like Google, I went to and did research into what are the top young artist programs, what are the top training programs, what are like, where would I go if I needed to find excellent opera singers who were young, right? Who weren't out in the business yet. And so I
Mhm.
did that work. And then when I went in with Heidi and talked, we just really connected
Yeah.
artistically of how we felt it was important to move forward. And one of the things that was the most important parts of our job was helping sort of like through the audition slash workshop process, kind of explain to opera singers what acting is, because opera really is classical music and they focus mainly on the voice. And we knew Baz would want actors. So we kind of would break down that audition. Don't just come in and sing, but let's actually do it like a monologue. Let's do it like a scene. Now let's add in the music in Italian, right? Like let's improv. Let's do all of this stuff to try to get the singers who may not have had the opportunity to think about their materials in a from an acting standpoint, that we're taking them through that so they would be prepared when they came in for Baz Luhrmann.
Were they receptive to those
Oh
things?
yeah.
Seeing as that's great.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
great. When you were working so when you're starting and casting and everything, was there something that you saw in casting that you thought might have been missing, that you thought, "Maybe I can help illuminate this aspect of it?"
You mean like for the industry? Like, here's
Yeah,
what you're
something. Yeah, I
missing?
don't know. Some
Could you
broad thing.
imagine? It's like, no, no. I do think that my directing degree
Yeah.
has helped me. It's like invaluable to the work that I do. I use what I learned in school and in acting school every day of what I do. It helps me understand where the actor's coming from. It helps me connect with the actor. Often I'm the one reading with the actor, so I am really comfortable trying, like if I feel like they're not quite listening to me, maybe I
Yeah,
mix up,
stop.
like I don't stop, but like maybe I make a beat happen that they're not expecting. So they kind of have to go
Yeah.
like, what's she doing? And I'm like, that's right. Come on, listen, come on,
Yeah.
And I think that those kinds of things, I can tell when an actor like doesn't understand the beat,
Yeah.
right? I'm not having to just go off like a gut feeling. I'm
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
understand the scene work. And I'm like, this actor has scene work, has really investigated the scene. And this one is, not.
This one doesn't understand it. But I think that's great that you understand that because in some of your previous interviews, you talked about how, you did a lot of scene work and that gave you a good perspective, I think, when coming into casting, because
Mhm.
you understand that you don't understand how to talk to actors,
Yeah. I
which
feel really lucky to have had that training.
yeah, yeah.
Mhm.
What do you think this is something I see with a lot of why do you think actors are always looking for, like, this magic pill? Because you talked about how, actors are like, what makes a great self-tape? Well, what is a great resume?" And, they're always looking for this magic pill that's gonna automatically get them cast instead of realizing that it's really gonna be the quality of the work that you bring into the room that's gonna show it. It's not gonna be this magic thing that you did. It's gonna be consistently over time. Why is that hard to what do you think?
I mean, honestly, it's an art form, and a craft, right? Acting. And it is, but it's also got this popular culture slash fame quality. So I think a lot of people want to be actors, but what they really want is to be a famous celebrity. And so they don't know about, they may have moved to LA
Yeah.
and, they're putting all their time in about how they look and like, going to the gym to make sure that they look ready to be a famous celebrity. But they're not necessarily hitting, the Ibsen and the Chekhov and really, learning about the craft of acting. And so therefore
Yeah.
they don't have any tools. They're not working on their voice. They're
Yeah.
not working on their scene study. But
Yeah.
that's hard is I don't think anyone goes to the Philharmonic and sees, an incredible concert and then says, you know what? I'm going to be a cellist tomorrow. I'm booking an audition tour through Europe. Like they recognize, I don't know how to do that, but I think when
Yeah.
you're good at acting, it looks like just behaving and living your life. So I think there's a lot of people who think I could do that.
Yeah. Since it looks easy, they're
Yeah.
like, "Oh, I can, wing that." But yeah, it's amazing to me because I'll talk to actors all the time, my friends, and I'll be like, "So who you studying with?" They're like, "Oh, I went to conservatory. I don't need to do that anymore." And I'm just kind of like, "Why?" That's
Well,
a
which
dumb
conservatory?
idea. Exactly. Yeah. I mean, but it's just like even if you do it never stops. You need to always be training. You need to and that's the other question I have. Why is it that actors are so reluctant to train? Like, say you
It's
have a
hard
profession.
and
Is that what it
expensive.
is? You think
Yes, it's hard.
but
It's
you can do it at
hard.
home. I do it at home.
Sure, but
With
you
a
don't have a Russian lady throwing a pencil at you if you're faking it.
no, you don't.
Like
But
a great
yeah,
teacher calls you out,
yeah.
and it can be painful.
I mean, I would say a lot of those I mean, I went to Strasbourg and that was probably the last of, like, that kinda teacher you had. We didn't really have teachers anymore throwing stuff at you. I kinda
I'm
wish we
just saying
did
in a
have that.
fun way. My favorite
I know what you
teacher threw
mean, I know
stuff.
what you mean,
I was a
we did
masochist,
have
though. I was like, "Rip me apart so I can rise
oh,
like a phoenix." I
same
wanted
me,
to be challenged. I
same me.
think it's
I
hard.
had you need to be, ripped because it's like, if you just tell me everything I'm doing is good, and it's like, well, what's the problem here? Why am I not getting
How come I'm
cast,
not a star? Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
but why do you think that? Because when you look at like a professional, you said it's hard, but is that just what it is? Because it's hard, it's difficult to do. I mean, you could be working on a monologue, you could be working on, like you said,
Yeah,
The
of course,
Voice.
but you don't know if you're good,
Mm, okay, that's
right?
interesting. Yeah,
You could
no,
work
that's
on a
that's an interesting.
monologue all you want. It doesn't mean you're a
Wow.
good actor.
No, no, it doesn't mean you're a
It's
good
highly
actor.
subjective as well. Like, it's
Yeah,
highly subjective. There's 2 things, like, the journey to becoming an actor is starts with a dream, obviously. I kind of
yeah,
joke about it where I'm like, we start with a pulse and a dream, right?
yeah,
And then I hopefully pursue training, learn about our blind spots, learn about our talents. Where does our talent lie? Where are our strengths? What are our weaknesses? I remember being in drama school and there was a lot of like, you're a head person and this person's a heart person. And I remember sitting there thinking, like, as far as I know, every single person in here has a head and a heart. But it might mean the way you approach the work is more intellectual versus more
yeah,
gut instinct or whatever. And again, it doesn't really matter your process as long as the result is effective and moving. And that also can be subjective. Like,
yeah,
I've had directors say like, this person can't sing. And I'm looking at the 5 Broadway shows where they play a lead on there. And I'm like, well, someone disagrees with you. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
obviously
Yeah.
they can, but like their voice doesn't work for you. So then, that agent calls, how did they do? Well, the director just wasn't on board with their voice. And of course, the agent's like, they have an incredible voice. I'm like, right, but it's just not for this director. It's very much a taste. It's like it's subjective. So you kind of have to know what kind of artist you are
Yeah.
and go in and share that. And I think that and you have to somehow find validation for yourself because I think a lot of actors want booking the work to be the validation.
Yeah.
I don't think that's a safe place to live.
No.
And certainly the audition room is not a place of validation. We're
Yeah.
doing a process to try to like cast the thing. We're not there. We don't know you. I mean, we get to know you, but like when you just walk into an audition, for the actor, it's all about them. But for us, it's not. It's like, what do you have to give us? What are you going to show us? And some actors, I think, especially when you read online where everyone's like, we don't like the self tapes. We want the adjustments. We want the casting director to tell us what to do. Part of me is like, I get that. But
Yeah.
like, that's not how it happens. It's not
Yeah.
like people come in with no ideas and we tell you how to do it. And then it's like, whichever one did it gets it.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, you're right. Some people, this,
I
I
think
saw that
people
interview talking about
actually,
that.
I think people actually think like, this is how people get cast. They go in and the cast director tells them. And I'm like, no,
No.
not necessarily. Because
No.
also we don't know. We need you to bring in your ideas. You're the piece of the puzzle that's missing. You're the artist in this collaborative process that's missing. We need artists to walk in the room, not just a person who will follow direction.
Yeah, and you need to be specific. You need to have ideas. You need to come with things, and
Point of view.
sometimes more than one idea, so that you can work off of it. So you're not just like coming in with an idea that's stuck in one way, and then it's like,
Yeah.
oh, we'll do this. It's interesting. What do you? Well, I want to go back to what you were talking about with you were talking about being in the room. What do you think about since we've kind of lost the self tapes, or I mean, well, since we've gone to self tapes and we've kind of lost a lot of the room, do you think that that's because you've said in previous interviews you see that as something that's good because you can see more people, but
No,
is
I've said there's pluses and pros and cons. I don't
okay,
think it's good.
okay,
I
so
think that it is a useful tool for people. It's more efficient, so you can see more people.
mm,
But also, it is. I think in terms of casting, like, can I find the right actor for this part? It. I don't want to say it's equal, but it is almost equal.
mm,
Right? And obviously, logistically, it's much more efficient. So when you have something that's almost equal, like, a good actor does a good self tape
yeah,
and they also give a good audition in the room. I think people are forgetting a little bit how much like they couldn't get in the room,
yeah,
couldn't get in the audition when it was all in person. I think people are forgetting that, or they're assuming they'll be one of the ones to get in. And
yeah,
obviously, if they were an actor who had tons of auditions, then they're missing that. And I totally understand that.
yeah,
But I think it's wonderful to be in the room. And I think it's magic happens in the room too. But sometimes I will receive a self tape that I'm like, that was magic. That was
yeah,
fantastic. Like it, we got it. Right. Like I'm
yeah,
very excited by the self tape. Um, I don't know. I just think that there's pros and cons to both, and it's very much like a logistics difference.
yeah. But I like what you said about like some people are just like, man, like, well, if I was in the room, then I would be booking, instead of realizing that, like,
I
if
think
it's good
grass
on
is
tape,
always greener. Now that we've gotten,
yeah,
I have a friend whose wife who, or a client, and a client, like a person I collaborate with, whose wife's an actor. And, during the self tape time, he was like, she was always like, oh, I hate the self tapes. And then the minute they was back in the room, she's like, that's actually worse. What was I thinking? I think it's grass is always greener. Auditions are hard.
yeah,
I think at the end of the day, what we can walk away from is auditions are hard. And, but it's the best way we've come up with to discover new people.
yeah. What do you think is the biggest obstacle facing actors and casting directors today?
Um, I think the same obstacle. I mean, I would say scarcity. It does feel like the industry is changing. And so there feels like, we're coming out of peak television where there was just so much being produced. But then I really think humans will human and we're going to keep telling stories. So I have a confidence in that. Um, the biggest challenge, honestly, to me, we're in a better place than when I started because I feel like there are stories being told for everybody now, like when
Yeah.
we talk about things like who were previously underrepresented, like, if people used to feel they needed to hide that they were LGBTQ, like people felt if they were not a size zero, they couldn't be an actor. They didn't see themselves represented. I think people of color didn't see themselves represented or only saw very basic stereotypes of, and now we really just live in a different world where people are more than ever creating their own stuff and it's getting, it's popular and it's getting produced. And, I don't know that we'll ever get to go back to peak television, which was, just there was so much content being produced in every direction, which was
Mm.
awesome, obviously. But we have to remember we have to make money,
Yeah.
like things have to, like we're lucky there's a commercial side, but because I think that means these studios are still going to want to sell content, right? Like at
Yeah.
the end of the day, they're going to want to, and humans are going to want to take in content. Like that is something I think we've never been different than that. Even we've had art with cavemen, right? Like we do
Yeah.
want to tell stories. Storytelling is a huge part of being human.
Please like, share, and subscribe. Thank you.